Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're strapping in for a really close look at the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix qualifying. Now, you know Monaco track position is, well, it's everything. It makes this qualifying hour just absolutely critical. So we're here to dissect how that grid shaped up, and maybe more importantly, why it shaped up that way.
Exactly right. We're not just, reading out the timesheet. We really want to get into the nuances, the little things that define this session, strategic calls, tiny differences on track, and we'll use the driver's own reactions to help us understand it all.
Yeah, and to help us get under the skin of it, we've got some great stuff to draw on. We've looked at the official Formula One YouTube transcripts, the drivers react after qualifying video, and the FP3 highlights one too. So, direct thoughts from the drivers. And we've also got analysis from Motorsports by Alex, specifically looking at the results. And interestingly, Max Verstappen's comments after the session.
Right. So our mission really is to connect those dots for you, to go beyond just the raw lap times and sort of uncover the stories, the insights about car performance, driver feelings, strategy, all that context.
Okay, let's jump straight into Q1 then. Right off the bat, it felt incredibly close, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. Leclerc went quickest, but you had Norris, Piastri, McLaren were right there, hinting at maybe a three-way fight.
Yeah, that early pace from Ferrari and McLaren was, well, it was notable.
Absolutely. But then, Monaco happened, the inevitable drama. Kimi Antonelli had that shunt at the Nouvelle Chicane. Red flag.
Ouch, a really costly mistake there. And Antonelli, he sounded genuinely sorry in that qualifying highlights clip, apologizing to the team.
Yeah, you could hear it.
And that incident, unfortunately, it meant game over for Bortolito, Behrman, Gasly, Stroll, and Colapinto.
It just shows you, doesn't it, the unforgiving nature of this place.
Absolutely. That razor-thin margin for error is what makes Monaco so captivating, but so punishing.
A tiny mistake, fraction offline, and bam, your session's done. We also saw, briefly, Verstappen and Hamilton looked at for potentially impeding, though nothing came of that in the end.
Right. And let's not forget Hülkenberg and Lawson. They both pulled out laps right at the end there, didn't they?
Yeah.
Managed to sneak into Q2.
Good efforts, yeah. Shows you can't relax even in Q1. Always a twist.
Okay, so moving into Q2. The tension definitely ramped up, and strategy started to play a bigger part. Different tire choices coming into play.
Yeah, we saw teams weighing up the softs versus the mediums, trying to figure out the best approach for that crucial Q2 lap.
And it was Lando Norris who, really laid down a marker. First driver all weekend under the 1.11 barrier.
That lap felt significant, didn't it? Like a real statement of intent.
It really did. But things weren't going so well for Mercedes.
No. After Antonella's Q1 issue, George Russell then had a mechanical failure.
Right in the tunnel. You couldn't pick a worse place for your car to just stop in Monaco.
Just awful luck, compounding what was already looking like a tough session for them.
And then, maybe a bit of a surprise, Carlos Sainz got knocked out. He looked pretty decent before qualifying.
Yeah, that was unexpected. He mentioned later in the driver's react piece that he felt maybe a Q1 tire strategy call put him on the back foot.
Ah, okay. Shows how one little decision early on can just snowball, right?
Exactly. It's a real domino effect. Everything is connected.
But on the positive side for Williams, Albon put in a great lap right at the end there to secure a Q3 spot.
Yeah, impressive stuff. Showed the Williams still has some fight in it.
Okay, so Q3. The shootout for pole. A real mix of strategies again, some on new softs, others on used, even mediums, I think, for some.
Yeah, a bit of everything. And the provisional pole time, it was just bouncing around. Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, back and forth.
You could almost feel the tension building with every car crossing the line.
Definitely.
And then Lando Norris, just wow, an absolutely blistering final lap, a 9.954.
Incredible. The only driver into the 1.09s. His first ever Monaco pole.
You could hear the pure elation in the commentary and, I imagine, on the McLaren pit wall. Just fantastic.
A really special moment for him, for the team. You could see it meant a lot.
Meanwhile, Leclerc gets P2. Front row started at home, which is great, but his comments afterwards suggested maybe he wasn't entirely happy.
Yeah, in Driver's React, he mentioned still having some doubts, like from Thursday practice. Said he wasn't quite feeling totally comfortable with the car, despite being P2. Mixed feelings, perhaps.
Interesting. And Piastri backed up the McLaren pace with a strong third.
Yeah, solid job from him.
Then Hamilton in fourth. He seemed, reasonably okay with that, considering he'd smacked the wall in FP3 earlier.
Yeah, a decent recovery for him. But the big story, maybe, was Verstappen, P5.
7/10 off Norris. That's a huge gap around Monaco.
It really is, and it points to maybe a fundamental issue for Red Bull this weekend, something Verstappen himself talked about quite a bit.
Alonso also had a good run, 7th, just incredibly close to Hadjar in 6th, a thousandth of a second.
Unbelievable margin.
Okay, let's dig into those driver perspectives a bit more. Norris, obviously just buzzing, called it unbelievable. Praised the team strategy.
Yep, pure joy from Lando. And, as we said, Leclerc, much more measured, hinting the car wasn't quite doing what he wanted it to.
Sainz, we mentioned, felt that Q1 tire call compromised his whole qualifying later on. Left him feeling a bit frustrated with 4th.
Yeah, thought he lost out there. Now, Verstappen, his comments were really revealing, weren't they?
Very much so.
Both in the Motorsports by Alex Peace and the Drivers React video, he kept coming back to the same thing. A lack of mechanical grip in the RB21.
Right. Specifically slow corners and riding the curbs. Yeah. Crucial areas in Monaco.
Exactly. He said he was losing loads of time in the middle sector. And for you listening, mechanical grip is basically how the tires physically light into the track surface. Super important for these tight, twisty corners where aero doesn't help as much.
He sounded almost puzzled by it. Said it wasn't something they could just fix with setup, and that the lack of confidence was there right from the beginning of qualifying.
Yeah, a real struggle for him by the sounds of it. Interesting contrast to McLaren and Ferrari.
Piastri, even though he got P3, also said in qualifying highlights he wasn't totally comfortable. Suggests maybe even McLaren haven't fully unlocked everything yet.
Yeah, maybe still more potential there.
Hamilton saw P4 as damage limitation, a decent outcome after kissing the wall in FP3. Admitted he was pushing hard.
Fair enough. Alonso seemed pretty happy with P7, though he did mention not being able to rotate the car quite as much as he'd like through the corners.
Always searching for that extra bit of performance, isn't he?
Always.
And Liam Lawson, making his Monaco F1 debut 7th, he sounded really positive. Saw it as a great starting point, especially thinking about race strategy and the new regs maybe offering chances.
Yeah, optimistic outlook from him. Potential for first points, he hopes.
Albon, for Williams, felt they showed good pace earlier, but maybe just missed the ultimate lap time in quali. Those fine margins again.
Exactly. Just need that tiny bit more.
Gasly, you could hear the frustration. Felt one mistake really cost him what could have been a much better result.
Yeah, really kicking himself. Ocon, his teammate, was actually quite happy with his lap, even though he said the car didn't feel great on the bumps.
Shows his skill around here, I guess.
Definitely. Hülkenberg seemed to echo Verstappen's comments struggling with low-speed grip, even saying the soft tire felt worse for him in those sections.
That's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Usually the softest tire is what you want here.
It is, yeah. Suggests a real balance issue, perhaps. And Tsunoda just felt he couldn't squeeze out any more time in that super tight midfield battle.
Just nowhere to find that extra 10th.
Pretty much.
Okay, before we wrap up with takeaways, let's quickly touch on FP3. Because often, it gives us clues.
Yeah, it does. We saw Hamilton's wall tap said he was just finding the limit in a fast corner. Fair enough. Leclerc topped that session, but even then, remember, he sounded cautious about pole.
Right, the seeds of doubt were maybe already there. And Verstappen was already complaining about the soft tires in FP3, wasn't he?
He was, foreshadowing those grip issues we saw later. And McLaren, both Norris and Piastri, they looked quick throughout FP3 as well. Consistent pace.
And there were other incidents too. Stroll, Tsunoda, Behrman had that grid penalty carryover. FP3 was pretty busy.
It really set the stage, I think. Showed the intensity, the potential for things to go wrong, which we definitely saw play out in qualifying.
Okay, so pulling all of this together, what are the big takeaways for you, the listener, from this Monaco qualifying deep dive?
Well, first, I think, is just how vital mechanical grip is here. It's absolutely paramount. Verstappen's problems really hammered that home. If your car doesn't generate that inherent grip and the slow stuff over the bumps and curbs, you're just lost around Monaco. It's a different challenge to high-speed aero tracks.
Right. Totally different skill set needed from the car. It really singles Monaco out, doesn't it?
It really does. Second takeaway has to be the margins. Just razor thin. Q1, Q2 decided by tiny fractions, even in Q3, like we saw with Alonso and Hadjar, a thousandth of a second. Every single input, every tiny setup choice, it gets magnified massively here.
Yeah, incredible pressure. And thirdly, I think, just the range of emotions we saw. The sheer joy from Norris getting his first pole here.
Yeah.
Compared to Verstappen's obvious frustration and even Leclerc's kind of cautious satisfaction, it really tells the story of the pressure cooker that is Monaco quali.
Absolutely. And finally, maybe just the unpredictability. You think you know how it might go, but then a red flag, a surprise performance, a mechanical issue. You just can't take anything for granted until that final flag drops in Q3.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat, that's for sure. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix qualifying. What an hour.
It really was something, a stunning pole lap from Norris, those incredibly close battles all the way through, Verstappen facing unexpected issues, and just, well, fascinating reactions from all the drivers afterwards.
So here's something for you to chew on before the race tomorrow. Thinking about these results and everything the drivers have said about their cars, the tires, what kind of race are we actually in for? Can Lando Norris convert that pole? It's notoriously hard to overtake here, we all know that.
But strategy, potential safety cars, maybe someone tries something different on tires. There are always possibilities for surprises in Monaco, right?
Exactly. So definitely tune in for the race and see how all these qualifying storylines play out on Sunday.